Hello and a very good afternoon. On a mission to empower you with the knowledge and tools and to unite our voices to take action this World Cancer Day, I, Darshika Shah from the Clinical Engagement Team, welcomes you to the Global Onco Conversations 2023. India between 2010 to 2019 saw an increase in the rate of cancer cases from 1.1 to 2%. While the pandemic led to a massive decline in screening, a study reported 1.4 million cancer cases in India alone in 2020. This year, to commemorate the World Cancer Day, Doc Plexus brings to you a 3-day event, the Global Onco Conversations 2023, to address several pressing issues around the cancer care gap, where experts from across the country and overseas will participate in various clinical sessions and updates in cancer care to help the community of healthcare practitioners. I hope you were able to attend our previous 2 days of lectures. So today we have a CME planned with 1 credit point. Kindly attend the program till the very end and participate in the form of questions and answers to gain your certificate. For the next 3 hours, our CME lecture would have speaker presentations from 3 eminent oncologists and then a question-answer based panel discussion. The registrations are still open, so please do register to avail your credit point. Starting with the first lecture, please welcome Dr. Vijay Ramanan, who is the Director, Bone Marrow Transplant Unit in Ruby Hospital Clinic and Yashoda Hematology Clinic in Pune. He is a leading clinical hematologist and bone marrow transplant physician in India and has treated over 14,000 thalassemia major patients across the world. Dr. Ramanan specializes in treating thalassemia, lymphoma, leukemia, etc. And he's also the founding director of the transplant unit at Ruby Hall Clinic in Pune and the first individual patron of the European Society of Bone Marrow Transplant in India. Dr. Ramanan is a pioneer of cord blood transplants in India as well. He shall be delivering a lecture on role of diet in blood-related disorders, including blood cancer. So let's get started.
Good afternoon, everybody. Namaste, namaskar. I am going to give a talk commemorating the World Cancer Day on behalf of Doc Plexus, and this is called the Global Onco Conversation. So this is one of the first lectures today for the same. I'll be talking about understanding the relationship between diet and cancer, and I have a passion for thalassemia, so I've included it here, but that's nothing to do with cancer, but still we need to understand it to improve the healthcare of our population. My name is Dr. Vijay Ramanan. I am a clinical hematologist based in Pune. I have an NGO called MVR Welfare Foundation. We work with the Red Cross here and run a daycare here. I started a bone marrow transplant setup at Ruby Hall Clinic in Pune. And also I'm a visiting consultant to the General Hospital here. So that's the introduction. I've been the patron of the European Society of Blood and Bone Marrow Transplant for many years now. So we all know in epidemiology that nothing happens by chance. It's a triad that's important: the host, the gene, and the environment. In cancer also, this whole thing runs the same way. We cannot change the gene. There are some diseases which will occur with the age, with the sex, with the race, genetic profiles, immune status, religious things, and marital status and all. But we can surely control the environment in which we are. And probably the agent also can be kept a bit far away. Environment including the place we stay, the amount of pollution we have. Pollution could be air, water, light. We are underestimating the light pollution. That's the blue light that we see. We need to appreciate the impact of blue light which comes out of our mobile, from a screen, from the lights, the LED lights that we put on our clinics also. The water, the milk, everything, a few questions maybe there about adulteration. All these things, the casein in the milk itself is supposed to be a cancer-causing agent. Radiation should not be underestimated. It could be from the soil, could be from the bricks of your building. So those are the things. Noise is now more and more thanks to all the activities of different spheres. Agent could be biological, chemical we know of, smoking, alcohol, everybody knows. But we are probably having a lot of industry-related chemicals. I'll be talking one of them today called Roundup, glyphosate, in some detail. Trauma could also be caused, a sharp tooth or something like that. And the nutritional excess or the lack of it can cause the same. And that's very important for us to understand. This is just a graph of what has happened to all the malignancies and all the autoimmune disorders that we have seen. I just put a graph here. There's no malignancy mentioned here, but remember malignancy also nearly have a similar graph. You can look at multiple sclerosis, type 1 diabetes, Alzheimer's, celiac, thyroid, autism spectrum disorders. After the COVID, there's a jump in the autism spectrum disorders. These are all related to food. And these have just jumped after 1980 and 90. So we should understand the Crohn's and all the other things that we talk about in a practice could in fact be related to what food we are eating today. Now I gave a small talk to the students. So I'm going through the same slides which all the healthcare practitioners can tell to their patients. What is important is the 3 W's we know of: when, where, how, what, and then how. So when to eat, we have forgotten the circadian rhythm. Even doctors have the CMEs in the midnight, and they have the CMEs after 9 o'clock. Even our meetings in Pune occur at 8:39. Everybody is eating after the OPD. I feel sorry for everybody of us. At least after COVID, we should awaken. We should get a circadian rhythm back. There's a brilliant doctor called Sachidanandan Panda from the Salk Institute in California who has done a brilliant research on circadian rhythm. We have studied this in our physiology and forgotten that it is part of our physiology. Remember, the circadian rhythm exists not only in the brain through the suprachiasmatic nucleus, it exists in each and every organ, in the liver, in the pancreas, which you name the organ, it is there. And by the time we reach 30 years, all of them are in dysynchrony. There is no synchrony. So our apne alag-alag clock, alag-alag time pe chal rahe hain. That's why we get all the heart attack, all the autoimmune disorders, the malignancies, everything occurring to us. Doctors live 10 years less than the general population. This is the study of IMA Pune. But we don't want to change anything to live longer than the patient. Now, important point of this whole thing is ghrelin, which is a hunger hormone, is secreted thrice: once 8 a.m., 1 p.m., and 6 p.m. And the insulin is secreted from 2 to 6 p.m. When are we eating food? We are eating whenever we wish. We eat a large breakfast, then we feel hungry. We eat another one at 11 o'clock, then one at lunch, and then one at 4 p.m., going to the OPD again and have a dinner at 10 o'clock. Remember, all these things are disrupting our whole rhythm as such. The most important thing is our social media. Social media is increasing our anxiety. What the other fellow is doing is more important to us than what we are doing. The important point is don't look at anyone else. It only increases your cortisol, adrenaline. All that leads to a very, very high level of insulin. Remember, whenever cortisol goes up, body tries to create more insulin because the sugar is going up. So I just had a patient of autoimmune disorder who came to me, whose father just passed away because of AMI, has not been sleeping for a few days. I just did an insulin level. His random insulin was 224. He's non-diabetic. He's in metabolic syndrome. I think 90% of our doctors are in metabolic syndrome. If you have a big paunch, if you have a big tummy, remember you look like a pregnant woman, then you are surely in metabolic syndrome. You need to do your insulin level, a fasting insulin to be exact, and do a fasting triglyceride. Look at the fasting glucose and PP glucose and calculate all the numbers. HOMA-IR is a score you can do, and also triglyceride glucose. I'll be talking about it a bit later. So people who do night duties, I sympathize with them. They have shift work. But why are we getting into social jet lag? We are getting into weekend or even CME conferences which go to 11 o'clock in the night, 12 o'clock in the night. We are having alcohol at that time. All these things are disrupting us. Remember, what is it causing? It is causing diabetes. It is causing hippocampal degeneration. So we don't remember anything what has happened. It is giving us hypertension. It is cardiac function is affected. Our ladies are getting PCOD. People are getting malignancies. People are getting MASH, NAFLD, cirrhosis. And you have alcohol in it. You have alcoholic liver disease, which is occurring very, very fast. And this is all occurring because of a disruption in sleep. We're eating late, sleeping late, looking at blue light too much time. I make my mobile black and white by around 6:30, and it's in the sleep mode, and I don't look at it too much. I look at my WhatsApp probably half an hour a day. People may be anxious about it, but I'm okay with it because I want to live longer. So how can you get out of this circadian dysynchrony? It's very simple. Sleep for at least 8 hours in the bed, roll in the bed. You may sleep for 7 hours, that's fine. Avoid eating 1 hour after waking up. Very, very important. Have a black coffee, black tea, or whatever you want to have. Always have a time restricted eating. It could be 8 hours, 10 hours, 12, 11 hours, 12 hours, 16 hours. I try to maintain approximately 14 to 15 hours at least, and peak of around 18, 19 hours. And go outdoor for walking. Dr. Panda feels you should walk in the afternoon, which is very difficult for me. So I walk in the morning for 1.5 hours every day, except Sunday. Daily exercise of 30 minutes is very good. You walk at 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock. That's supposed to be the best time to get your circadian clock in place. And eat 3 hours before you sleep. If you're going to sleep at 11 o'clock, please have your food by 8 o'clock. That is the best way to go forward. In the evening, avoid carbohydrate, have more complex carbohydrate, have less and less of refined grains. That's very, very important. To all my doctors, I want to request you, get your rhythm in place. Try to eat twice a day. In Marathi, there is a kahawat, the person who eats once is yogi. One who eats twice is called bhogi, and the one person who eats thrice is called rogi or patient. So when you are eating 4 times, even a biscuit any time is one food. So that will be like Maharogi. So our doctors are, I feel, going into a cycle of becoming Maharogi, and then we are say, मुझे क्यों stent लग गया? Because we are not taking care of ourselves, we are not drinking enough water, we are not eating vegetables, we are eating only idli, dosa. See, anything which is simplified carbohydrate, fermented carbohydrate is going to spike very fast and it's going to hit your endothelium, will give you atherosclerosis and also help your cancer to grow. How to eat is very important. We know it from our childhood. 80% full is very important. As I told you, eat once or twice, that's more than enough. Maybe 3 times if you don't have any, if you have some big work. And never eat late because it disturbs the inner clock. It in fact disturbs your it causes metabolic syndrome. Eat more water, eat more veggies, eat the protein and then the refined carbs. आपको रोटी खानी है तो पहले आप पानी पीजिए, फिर सब्जियां खाइए, फिर आपके साथ जो प्रोटीन खाना अंडा हो कुछ भी हो और उसके बाद ही आप रोटी को हाथ लगाइए. The last thing to be touched is roti. So I would say, in fact, I'm an anti-gluten guy now today, but there may be many opinions about this thing, but I have benefited very tremendously in my health parameters by just avoiding gluten. No wheat, no pav, no biscuit, no bread. Where to eat, everybody knows. On the table, not in the bed, not in front of a TV or mobile, not with alcohol. And eat food as a celebration. That's very, very important. I'm saying the simple things which you can implement in your house, with your kids, with your grandkids, with your patients also. That's very, very important. Many years back, I've been chasing this because my NGO has been now nearly closing on 10 years. So I've been following the work of a big group called Environmental Working Group. So many years back, when I started my NGO, I was following up with this great NGO in US called the Environmental Working Group. They have a shopper's guide to pesticides. They have this slide called the Dirty Dozen. You can look at it. Many of them you must be enjoying a lot. Strawberries are good, the peaches are good, the apples are good, blueberries are good. But the thing is, there are a lot of insecticides. And if I don't know whether you know it or not, but strawberries need alternate day spraying of insecticides. So how to eat them? They are good nutritionally. So what you do is, what we suggest to our patients is dip them into salt water for around 2 to 3 hours. Then, in fact, wash them again in running water and then eat them. That's the way to remove the insecticide content from these beautiful fruits. Potatoes are not my favorite. Potatoes have a lot of carbohydrates and they are under the soil. So whatever reasons we don't prefer them. Clean 15, you can have a lot of portions of it. They are good to eat and they have less amount of insecticides. So EWG also has a list of lot of cosmetic items, a lot of other things, soaps, which have been proven to be safe for humans. So I always request all the ladies, in fact, to check onto the EWG site, Environmental Working Group site, to see if the thing they're using is safe. More and more in India, what has happened is because of animal, safety issues, the lot of lipsticks have been used first up on humans rather than on animals. With due respect to their viewpoint of view, but women should understand that these things are not standardized on animals. So what food to take is very, very important. I mean, more and more things I learn about blue zones across the world. I think there are few areas in India, in the city I stay in, which is called Pune. There are few areas which are close to blue zones. I have seen at least 3 or 4 or 5 people living up to 100 years. The consistent thing that I found was they were eating whole food, plant-based diet. They were having whole grains, which they were growing in their own field. They were eating small portions 2 times a day, usually 10:30 in the morning and 5:30 in the evening. 5:30 why? Because the sun sets after that. And when they were alive, when they started alive, there was no electricity in those villages. So they would live a simple life and eating food twice a day. And they would have to plan for the whole year, so they would eat smaller portions. Today we have unlimited food. For example, you want to buy an apple, you can get a dozen of apple. Probably mangoes, you can have kilos of mangoes. But there was a time I still remember when you would go to the field and throw a stone and get a mango down. But today that's not so. We don't climb up any tree, and we are just eating all the sugar that's coming out of those food. So we can have wheat, but have it with bran. Very important to remember, wheat is not a single grain. It is called bran, it's called endosperm and germ. So what is happening? One portion of it is getting powdered, and you're eating that as a bread or as a bun or as a biscuit. So, and we in India eat it as chapati. So it's important to remember that it does not have fiber. When it doesn't have fiber, it spikes it faster. In wheat, I find there are two things which are happening. Gluten is going up, and second thing is glyphosate, which I'll be discussing a bit later, which is called Roundup, which is a very dangerous herbicide, which the amount of content in the wheat is going up. So many of the malignancies must be occurring because of our habit of being dependent on wheat. I had few patients from Bangladesh, and when I told them to use something like jowar or bajra, they said they just have maida or they have wheat. Unfortunate, but that's a part of that's true because none of their supermarkets seem to have anything else. We in India are lucky we can have all those millets and all those things, and we should have it. In the north of this country, we eat a lot of sattu, which is based of something called chana dal. That's also a very, very good food to have. Veggies, you should always eat the rainbow. All colors should be there in your food. Onions are fine, carrot radish in moderation. Sweet potato once in a while with the skin would be a good thing. And when it comes to fish, freshwater fish once a week and saltwater or sea fish once a month because of a high content of mercury, which is going up in the sea. Eggs, I feel in moderation. There's a lot of discussion about how much cholesterol it has. I feel dietary cholesterol contributes only 20% of the whole body cholesterol. That's fine. There's a feedback loop which occurs. And hyperinsulinemia does occur because of protein. That's the thing we should not forget. So I've seen many of my patients with autoimmunity, they try to have more protein-rich diet, the insulin level spikes up. So important to remember, don't try to spike the insulin because insulin also helps the malignant cells. So that's very important. Cholesterol may be a small issue. And people only eat whites of an egg. That's, I think, is a humbug because white ultimately spikes insulin and also gets converted because of gluconeogenesis into glucose by a longer pathway. There's more thermogenesis, there is a more heat effect. Whatever said and done, the white becomes ultimately, if you don't have the yellow with it, into glucose. End of the story. So that's very important to remember that it's a fad. I've seen many of my instructors in the gym who have a paunch, who have a tummy after eating 16 egg whites a day. So they may be having more muscle, but very important to remember that they are also having a lot of fat because the fat is being converted from the glucose. Red meat, I would say reduced to the minimum. We are seeing more and more data that more the red meat, more the malignancy. Colonic malignancy, esophageal malignancy, and that's very, very important to remember. Alcohol, in my own experience, has been a disruptor. Lack of sleep, alcohol, sugary food in the night, always affects my heart rate variability. So ultimately, it must be spiking my cortisol up, and it remains high for up to 14 days that I've seen, even a single peg of 30 ml. So I've reduced it to really minimum, probably once in 3 months. So all doctors should remember that alcohol is as you grow up, probably at 40, at 45, 50, it's the time to leave alcohol and red meat. That's very, very important to remember. So what are the foods to avoid? Very easy. Anything which comes in a packet or has a face, try to avoid it as much as possible. So you can have bread, baked items, rice. If you're having with lime juice or apple cider vinegar with a lot of dal or protein, that should be fine. But single rice should be avoided as much as possible. Whole rice, the longer rice is better than the broken one. Sugary drinks, we have mocktails, which taste beautiful, but I think they are harmful to our body. Sweeteners, any sweetener, honey, jaggery, maple syrup, everything is ultimately sugar in different forms. Starchy items like potatoes, sweet potatoes, and beets. Beets are a fashionable thing for many people. It has a lot of energy, but I feel it's under the ground. It's a storage root with thiocyanin in it. So you do not think it has got a lot of nutrition. Many of our patients, in fact, eat a lot of beets thinking hemoglobin will go up. I say there's no hemoglobin in it to go up. So just Have it in limits, moderation. That's very, very important. If you want to have potatoes, have with the skin, sweet potatoes with the skin, not without the skin. Alcoholic beverages are no. Best thing is low fat and diet items are just fads. The more low fat it is, more carbohydrate is added in different names. So remember, nothing like that. Lesser processed food is better than more processed food. That's very, very important to remember. Fruits in the season. If you know oranges, you have oranges. Probably half a one per day. That's more than enough. And avoid cakes, ice creams, confectionery items, biscuits in the night. If you want to have it, probably have it in the afternoon when your insulin is up. At that time, you can have a smaller portion. Remember, portion is very, very important. Moderation is the key. This is a brilliant book. I don't know how many of you have read it, The China Study by Colin Campbell, T. Colin Campbell from Cornell. And they studied the incidence of cancer in China, and they found out wherever the intake of milk and the red meat was high, the cancer was high. So important for us to remember is if we reduce these two events and I think add wheat to it, we will be able to reduce the incidence of cancer. Prevention is better than cure. Treatment is for the cancer, which is the effect of something else. So what I feel is effect is from the food and also insulin. So if you do not spike the insulin and do not eat any insecticide, you'll and probably not have anything like casein in your food or red meat in your food, probably your incidence chances of having a cancer would reduce. Very important to remember, epigenetics is very, very important for all of us. Genes may be there, but there's epigenetics going on. You can prevent the expression of a cancer-causing gene by having the right food, which may be broccoli, which could be celery, citrus fruits, apples, eggs, in moderation is very, very important. So you eat the good ones, the whole rainbow, and you'll be better. Drink a lot of water, exercise every day, don't take stress of the world, that'll be better. In the last 10 months, I've come to believe insulin resistance is the most underestimated enemy of our science. Now, why am I saying so? I feel this is the cause rather than the effect. It's the beginning of a problem, beginning of atherosclerosis, beginning of inflammation, beginning of autoimmunity, beginning of malignancy. So you can look at this slide where you say microbiota gets changed. Everybody knows the standard American diet, or I call the SAD diet, ultimately affects the microbiota. The microbiota ultimately causes a lot of inflammation, a lot of insulin resistance, and fat deposition. Ultimately leads to a state where there's hyperinsulinemia, which causes a lot of increase in the mitosis, and ultimately doesn't cause apoptosis of the bad cells. So it causes more and more malignancy. So remember that insulin resistance may be the beginning of the whole thing, and we should look for insulin resistance in childhood, in adolescence, in young adulthood. When you're passing our MD, MBBS, we should just think about it. Because I remember I gained 37 kilos of weight in 5 years from my MBBS, finishing my MBBS to the end of my MD. I thought this was a good thing. In my life, I'd never gained so much weight, but now in retrospect, I realized probably it was the worst thing to have happened to me. And nobody told me it was the worst thing. People believe I should have been overweight. I feel it's better. If your kid doesn't eat much, it's good. Just don't go behind him trying to feed him too much. Another slide to show you the same thing, that more insulin causes increased leptin. Leptin, we all know, causes satiety, but the bad part is it causes the breast cancer cells to also go up. And more insulin causes less amount of adiponectin. So what happens? The metastasis occurs. So very, very important to remember, if more insulin ultimately by some mechanism or the other causes rapid breast cancer cell growth and increases its invasive capacity. So metastasis occurs to different organs. I've seen many of my close relatives getting metastatic disease. And I feel somehow nobody noticed this enemy in the room. The white elephant in the room has not been noticed for many, many years. We need to stop spiking the insulin by eating a low carbohydrate diet or a complex carbohydrate diet, so that less amount of insulin gets spiked, less protein in the diet. 0.6 grams per kg is more than enough for survival. And you don't want to be a Jim, you don't want to be Arnold Schwarzenegger. You want to live like a normal human being. 0.6 grams per kg of protein, good protein, plant protein, that's a better way to go. Reduce the insulin, your chances of getting a cancer would be reduced. Simple slide again. I've been showing it to my students. Look at what insulin does. Insulin and the glucose ultimately helps a normal tissue to become leukemic cell. And it's very important to remember the leukemic cells also secrete insulin growth factor binding protein 1. And there's a slide which I have not put it over here, where I've shown in myelodysplastic syndrome, the insulin level in fact shoots up, and in leukemia, because of the expression of this binding protein, the insulin level is measured as normal, but the thing is, the activity of insulin is increased. So important to remember that insulin per se, if you hyperinsulinemia, what happens is there's insulin resistance, probably in the liver, probably in the fat, adipose tissue, probably in the muscle, and probably in the pancreas to end with. But other tissues are not insulin resistant, so they get affected more. So if there's one cancer cell, that fellow will take this insulin and just go into becoming million cancer cells. So important to remember, insulin needs to be appreciated by all doctors. I feel 70% of India, 80% of India must be metabolic syndrome. Though there are diabetics who are only 8.8 crores, but there must be 80 crores of metabolic syndrome, if not less, if not more. So very important to remember that we need to look for the 80 crores, and these are the people who are contributing probably to getting more cancer. This is a nice slide which I found in PCOS. What insulin does is increases androgen. Androgen, you know, all testosterone and all those things. We know how much we enjoy our testosterone, but the important part is testosterone, in fact, stimulates the bone marrow stem cells. Post-COVID, I started noticing a lot of triple negative myeloproliferative disorders. The hemoglobin, today in my OPD, I saw 3 patients who had a similar thing. High androgen values, high insulin levels. These fellows have high hemoglobin, high WBC, high platelets, and you are a 60 or 70-year-old lady, you get MDS like picture where you have anemia and all those things. You have to just do one thing: remove the wheat, remove the casein, remove the fruits. 3 things: no gluten, no casein, no fruits, no fructose. So immediately, in 2 months' time, we have seen the whole thing improving. Now, there's no case control study, there's no trials as such. You can try it in your own general practice and see whether that helps your patients in becoming better. I have seen mental clarity improving dramatically after just withdrawing all this. So remember, insulin has multiple roles. You also may not be thinking about it. This slide is for the amount of thrombosis that occurred in COVID. Everybody thought, why is everybody getting so much AMI? Is it the vaccine? Is it the COVID? I feel this is the insulin. This is the elephant in the room who nobody's appreciating. Look at, in insulin resistance, what happens is endothelin 1, which is ET1, goes up. And in fact, PI1, the plasminogen activator inhibitor, also goes up. So there's less breaking down of clot. There's more about the endothelin 1, which causes a lot of side effects on the arterial circuit as well as on the venous. So ultimately, patients are getting a lot of AMI, stroke, and God knows what else could be occurring. So insulin resistance is the main key we should take from here. We should remember, we should reduce the insulin resistance of the doctors, their family, and the patient and his family. So remember, this is the thing everybody should tell from today's lecture, we need to reduce insulin resistance. This is a study which is done in South Korea with more than 60,000 subjects, where they compared between non-diabetic and diabetic. Look at the incidence of hypertension, hypercholesterolemia, hypertriglyceridemia, obesity, depression. All of them are in non-diabetics also. Non-diabetics, 49% are hypertensive, 66% have hypercholesterolemia. What it means is everybody is looking at the sugar, but the most important villain is insulin. It's not the sugar as such. We Indians are something called a tofu, which is thin outside and fat inside. And we have to remember that. We have a lot of fat in our liver, in our adipose tissue. So we cannot just ignore it. And we need to reduce the amount of animal proteins. We are taking fattening carbohydrates, which are refined carbohydrates, and increasing the cortisol by looking at Instagram and Facebook and social media and unnecessarily taking tension of everything in life. So that is spiking of the insulin. When the insulin goes up, there's insulin resistance. And moreover, the fructose, which may come in different forms, in high fructose corn syrup or from the fruits we are having. So that is all spiking the insulin resistance, ultimately leading to a hormonal obesity. Along with that, all the insulin resistance things that I told you. HOMA-IR and triglyceride glucose indices have been the ones I've been using for last 10 months to check the insulin resistance as such. So the treatment is basically a low-calorie diet, which would probably be a low-fat, low animal fat diet. It would be a whole food plant-based diet. I would say avoiding milk is a good thing because a lot of data show 39% there's an increase in prostate cancer when you have milk, 49% increase in breast cancer relapse, and 69% increase in the death due to cancer. So milk, casein, this is the data from the China study. You can go back to the book and read also. You can tell me if I am wrong. And I would say avoid animal protein and eggs as much as possible because it increases insulin resistance. And remember, antibiotic use in the animal industry, meat industry, is one of the highest. 80 to 90% of antibiotic use, probably 70 to 80%, is in the animal industry, and that is creating antibiotic resistance. This antibiotic resistance gets transferred to us when we eat that same animal. So approximately 20,000 deaths per year in US are occurring because of antibiotic resistance. And salmonella, we know every time we get a news in US from a chain getting salmonella deaths, we net 3,000 deaths per year. Remember 9/11 only killed 1,500 people and we went behind Osama. But nobody's going behind whatever the pharma, the food, or the dairy industry because they are doing more damage than what was done in 9/11. And we need to take care of it. We doctors need to take the responsibility because nobody else wants to take it. And we don't know. I mean, all the agencies seem to be the disease causing agency is the one which is sponsoring the guidelines. That's what it looks like. Nice article. I would like you to read also. This is Dr. Christopher Gardner from Stanford. I follow him avidly on YouTube. Very nice lectures he has. He did a study called Diet Fits to know which diet is good for whom. So if you have insulin resistance, your HOMA-IR is high, your triglyceride glucose is high, you should try a low carbohydrate diet. Simple. Low carbohydrate diet is a diet for someone who's got insulin resistance. So do your test. If you're that, you reduce the amount of carbohydrate, ultimately your insulin resistance will come down. The risk of getting AMI, risk of getting cancer, everything will be reduced. Insulin resistance causes all this: thrombosis, arterial venous, hyperuricemia. Whenever I see today a hyperuricemic guy, first I do is insulin resistance test. I don't look at, I don't give allopurinol, the pivexistat. I first try to rule out insulin resistance and reduce that, and the uric acid comes down. Body ache is common, PCOS, we know it. Anemia, misdiagnosis, MDS, that's what I feel. Autism, misdiagnosis, autism spectrum disorders, they are all hyperinsulinemia. Polycythemia, thrombocytosis, misdiagnosed as triple negative MPN is also, majority of them, I think, are insulin resistant. So these are things you can keep in mind, and remember the elephant in the room is insulin. Now, there's a lot of thing about how much should I exercise. As soon as I see, whenever I go for a walk in the morning, I see those people who have a bit more weight, they're running. They think running would reduce their weight. Running will never reduce their weight because that's only 5% of the whole job. 95% is NEAT, non-exercise activity. Thermogenesis, you should wash your utensils, probably help your wife, and do your normal activity. Do not sit at the same place in the clinic. Keep on having something called a soleus strengthening. Keep on moving your legs. That will help you more than just walking for that half an hour, 45 or 1 hour. Running 20 kilometers may help you in burning some calories, but eating that whole thing on a burger will just finish it off. So this is why the young population is not losing any weight because they binge on the Fridays and the Saturdays and probably on the Sundays also. So they have to understand even if you reduce the food for 4 days a week, you are overcompensating on the last 2 days or 3 days. This is a story I want you to know. It's called the Roundup story. Roundup is a herbicide which has been used avidly. I mean, it's used. You go to your farmer and ask him, "Do you use Roundup?" They'll tell you. In India, it goes by different names. Glyphosate is the content of the Roundup. So it's been known to cause non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, leukemia, and all other cancers. Recently, I lost 2 generations of the same family. They sprayed the same thing. One died because of oral CA. Second one died because of a sarcoma. We thought it was a Burkitt. It went so fast. The grandfather and the father went off. It's just the son who is a 21-year-old. They kept on spraying Roundup in their field to get more production, lesser damage. And what it did is finished off 2 generations in first generation went in 45 years of age, the second one at 70. So bad things are occurring around us and we are not able to appreciate it. Roundup, there is a lot of story. Glyphosate came in 1974. Today, 94% of soybean crops is manufactured as Roundup. 90% of cotton and corn comes from the same thing. It was manufactured by a company called Monsanto. Everybody knows it. Monsanto has been taken over by Bayer now. Total of $15 billion have been spent by Monsanto and Bayer to compensate for all these claims in US. I don't remember any claims in India or in Southeast Asia or anywhere because of Roundup. I think if you look a bit deeper, many of our malignancies today must be because of Roundup. Roundup was found in by the EWG in 100% of children feed, kids cereal feed. We were telling our kids should have nice cereals, but look at them. They all of them have glyphosate or Roundup. And there have been a lot of pressure on Kellogg's and Kellogg's of the world, and they found now they are supporting use of less and less Roundup. And whatever the reason may be, WHO also calls Roundup as a probably carcinogenic to humans. I feel it's clearly carcinogenic to humans, but they call it, so we believe it. And there was an article published by the EWG group which showed that if you eat organic food, the chances of cancer is very low. It means that if you have Roundup in your food because of non-organic items, it's more and more dangerous. So many people are given a letter in US. I think high time we in India also give it to our government to stop production of glyphosate. You can use anything else, stop glyphosate, because now glyphosate is Roundup is not supplied in India in that amount, but glyphosate in the generic amount is being used. So you can look at the names of the companies that I mentioned here: Happy Family, Nature's Path, all nice looking names with Kellogg's, the Quaker, General Mills. All of them have given letters to stop the spraying of Roundup on the thing. I have a belief, I don't know whether it's correct or wrong. Donald Trump went on to ban the spraying of Roundup by kids, which was not done by Mr. Obama. So I feel that was one good thing that happened in US. We don't know who is spraying what in India. We in India need to have rules. These such toxic things should not be sprayed by anyone young. Coming to the next elephant, which we try to underestimate, is plastic. Plastic in India, in everywhere, is increasing. So BPA or bisphenol A it causes a estrogenic disruption. So that's very, very important to remember. Estrogen is a hormone which basically is important for women. But important thing to remember is it also causes breast cancer. It causes all other malignancies also. So that's very, very important to remember. In small things like paper cashiers, receipt also, this BPA can exist. Dental sealants have it. So small things. You go to buy a water bottle, always remember to invert it and see there's a number 1 written, 1. So what does 1 mean? You can use it only once. Don't use any bottle which is for filling water, which comes in with, let's say, whichever bottled water you're using, do not use it again. Throw it out. Now, you can use plastics with the recycling symbol of 2, 4, and 5. Do not use 1. You can use 7 if you have something called PLA written, which is a leaf symbol, which is a recycling symbol. Otherwise, you do not use that too. And do not use too much amount of microwave plastics, because when you microwave repeatedly, those get stressed and they start releasing all the toxins into your food. So ultimately, breast cancer and ovarian cancer may be reduced if you reduce the use of plastics and microwave. I am not a very big fan of microwave. You can use microwave. Always allow the period to finish and then put your hand into it. Tandoori is one thing which we love. Smoked salmons are loved by Japanese, but remember, it all leads to stomach cancer. Gutka, we have finished it off, but it comes in different forms, tobacco and all. Sharp tooth, all of them cause oral CA. Reheated oil, like in vada pav, or we have that has a lot of nickel, tryptophan, and alanine. There's a big brand in India by one of the 4 big companies, A, B, C, D. If you know it, they're the 4 big companies. You can just Google ABCD of food industry. They have some oil in India which probably we need to investigate what it's causing. Instant food has a lot of additives which cause a lot of problems as such. So some things women should remember is about their own health. Women are living longer, that we all know. Women live 5 years to 10 years more than their counterpart males. They have early puberty probably because of plastic, because of refined food. They're marrying late, pregnancy late. They have a lot of weight gain now because of refined food, and they're trying to compete with men. Smoking, drinking alcohol, and stress. They have more of it because they look at the Instagram probably 10 times more than men. And they have sleep deprivation because they're looking and looking at the blue light too often. And low vitamin D because they don't go out that often. A lot of plastic use, LED light, blue light exposure, reduces the melatonin. Sleep is not there. So they have more diabetes, dementia, autoimmune disorder, PCOS, endometriosis, cancer, everything. So jackpot is reducing the melatonin in your brain, and it ultimately manifests as other disorders. Food which are not cooked from the original sources, fast food, and everything that is a shortcut. And I told you, cosmetics in India, there are no animal experiments, so the humans are the first point of experimentation. So women should understand they are the ones who live longer, who have a higher risk of malignancy today. To coming towards the end, air pollution is one of the least appreciated things. And remember, inside the house, the pollution is 2 to 5 times more than outside the house. That's very, very important to remember. We think the pollution outside on the road is higher. I think you should remember the pollution inside the house is 2 to 5 times more. So it comes from the building products, foam furnishing, carpet, paint, everything. So you can have an air purifier, good one, purify the air. But the most important thing in the morning, you should do at 6:30 or 5:30, whichever time you get up. Open the windows, allow the cross ventilation to occur, and close the windows after that. Now, a lot of change has occurred in our dietary practices. We have left the iron utensils which our grandmothers had and gone to non-stick, which is all releasing all the toxin and the chemicals out of that broken surfaces. So I feel non-stick should go off and iron utensils should come back. And the B12 food does not have, I mean, the vegetarian food does not have too much B12, but if you have the sprouts, it will have the B12, so you can do that. Dark jaggery has its iron coming from the utensil itself, so I feel iron utensil is the best thing, and germinated seeds for the vegetarians. As I told you, I work for thalassemia. It's not part of cancer, but remember, every patient, you see a microcytic anemia, your ferritin is normal, please do a HPLC for ruling out thalassemia. Every doctor should have a HPLC done to know that whether they are minor or not. I have done that. I am minor. And always remember, if two husband and wife both are married or both are thalassemia minor, 8th week of pregnancy, you should do a test to rule out thalassemia major. Approximately 20,000 kids are born every year with thalassemia major, and we need to stop it now. It's high time. So take home messages: avoid blue light, mobile and white light, avoid food after sunset as much as possible, processed food, ice cream, alcohol, bread, pav is a bun, and take water and cucumber as much as possible, as much as you want. Night mode on the mobile, I told you 6:37. Switch social media off your radar. You go off that, it's better. You live longer without cancer. Take euglycemic hyperinsulinemia. Remember, sugar is normal, but insulin high is the most dangerous. I just saw today morning one gentleman, I gave an example. Sugars are normal, insulin is 10 times more than normal. And look at the fasting and PP. The PP is lower. Always remember, the PP sugar is lower. Always be sure that this could be hyperinsulinemia. And always look at fasting and PP postprandial insulin also. Maybe the insulin resistance is killing more than hyperglycemia. And always eat for the microbiome. Remember, the intestinal microbiome, the colonic microbiome is 10 times or 100 times bigger than us, the body. So we should eat for them. They are the real host, and we are basically covering the host. So remember, we need to keep our host happy. Be mindful in life, enjoy life, be thankful to everybody, friends, families, everyone. And use solely strengthening. You can Google it, what it is. It's a simple exercise you can do sitting on a chair in the clinic. You can use canola oil, rice bran oil, unrefined oil. I always say the best food and oil is the one you did not have. So you don't have oil, it's good, fantastic. If you don't have food, if you have fasting, it's more fantastic. So remember, fasting is very, very good. What am I learning now? Stress, sleep, food, and light define the circadian rhythm. So I'm trying to keep them from getting disrupted. I'm trying my best. And they also keep the microbiome happy. And insulin resistance needs to be defined. If you have insulin resistance, then take low carbohydrate diet. Always eat what your microbiome likes. There's a bacteria called Akkermansia muciniphila, which is very low in insulin resistant people. So if you in supplementing, it doesn't help. But if you are able to do a metabolic or a microbiota data on yourself, if it's low, you should look for insulin resistance. I tell my patients, my friends, satiety defines everything. I get satiety with fat. So that means the fat is the one which will help me, and I eat more of vegetable fat, which doesn't spike my insulin also and gives me satiety. So that's how I try to satisfy my desire for food. A few mnemonics which you can also take home. One is called MNGLE. This is the most important thing: microbiome, nutrition, gene, lifestyle and epigenetics. All of them are important for us. I say ARGA, which is avoid refined carbs and added sugar. This is very, very important. You can put it in a clinic also. Avoid refined carbs and added sugar. Wheat has BEG. I beg you to understand the BEG, which is bran, endosperm, and germ. And wheat has a 2G scam, which is gluten and glyphosate. This scam is going on for years together now, 50, 60, 70 years. And SOS runs the whole food industry, which is salt, oil, and sugar. And remember, nature had a mechanism of causing insulin resistance only in winter so that we could survive through the winter. But now insulin resistance is 12 months of a year, not only winter. This is because of us, because of processed food, all those things. So remember that very, very much. These are the slides for you. It is there online also. You can look at who sponsors ADA, who sponsors American Cancer Society, AHA, food industry is sponsoring it. If you, I mean, that's I am not saying anything. Tyson, the Cargills, the Unilevers, everybody is sponsoring these groups, and these are big names. And I don't know how much we can believe our own self. Michael Pollan has nice books, so you can read them. He talks about food. He says the food is not just fuel. Food is about the family, is about communication, is about identity. We should nourish the food. All those things when we are having food, we should think about the family and think food as a celebration rather than just element to enjoy. I tell my patients, enjoy life rather than enjoying food. Parting slide, this is indications of metformin, which may be future of metformin. Look at all the malignancies, lung cancer, you have malignant skin tumors, ovarian cancer, breast cancer, thyroid cancer, cervical cancer. So that means if metformin can be used in all these indications, insulin resistance is the key, and we need to look at it, the real enemy. So to end, I would say eat food, not too much, and mostly plants. Thank you very much for this opportunity.